The markets are closed, but the business stories are just heating up. Hello, I'm Mai Rodriguez. Catch up with us on Business Brief. Asian shares edged mostly higher on Monday as signs of progress in a trade standoff between the United States and Canada helped risk sentiment. Canada recently rescinded its digital services tax in a bid to advance trade negotiations after pressure from President Donald Trump. The trade talks are aimed at getting a deal by July 21st, extending Trump's original July 9 deadline for his reciprocal tariffs. Officials have suggested most deals could now be done by the September 1 Labor Day holiday. Japan's Nikkei 225, South Korea's Kospi, China's Shanghai Composite, and Australia's ASX 200 are in the green, while Hong Kong's Hang Seng falls and Singapore's Straits Times is flat with a downward bias. A sea of red dominates the currency markets as the US dollar depreciates against the Japanese yen, Singapore dollar, South Korean won, and Thai baht. The Australian dollar, meanwhile, appreciates against the greenback, but the US dollar is flat against the Hong Kong dollar. This is due to concerns that the US jobs data will show enough weakness to justify larger rate cuts. In commodities and crypto, gold prices rise by 0.3%. Meanwhile, oil markets are mixed, with West Texas Intermediate crude falling by 0.4% and Brent crude dropping 0.2%. However, Dubai crude rises by nearly 0.1%. In the cryptocurrency space, Bitcoin is up by 0.8%, while Ethereum up more than 2%. The Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas revises the balance of payments projection for this year and 2026. The BSP now expects the BOP to register a $6.3 billion deficit in 2025, higher than the earlier $4 billion deficit projection. By 2026, the BSP expects the BOP to register lower at $2.8 billion. The central bank explains that this is to take into account the impact of global uncertainty, heightened geopolitical risks, and investor confidence on its BOP outlook. The BOP is a summary of the economic transactions of a country with the rest of the world for a specific period. Manila Water Company acquires 100% ownership interest in WawaJVCo Incorporated from Prime Infrastructure Incorporated and minority shareholders. WawaJVCo was established to develop and maintain the Wawa Bulk Water Supply Project, a critical infrastructure initiative designed to augment Metro Manila's raw water supply. In a disclosure, the firm, led by Bilyonaryo Enrique Razon, says the acquisition is aligned with its water security objectives. The Board of Directors of Oriental Petroleum and Minerals Corporation, or OPM, approves a share buyback program of its common shares worth 200 million pesos. In a disclosure, the OPM says this is to enhance shareholder value and to demonstrate confidence in the corporation's future prospects. The board has designated Finance Advisor Aldrich Javellana and Chief Financial Officer Maria Riana Infante to execute and implement the share buyback program. Arthaland Zilea Land Development Corporation secures a prime Makati asset. It's acquiring 1.49 billion pesos worth of condominium units and land interest in Midland Mansions from ISOC Land Incorporated. The acquisition includes the unit's undivided interest in more than 1,000 square meters of underlying land located along Arnaiz Avenue. The transaction forms part of the Poe family's strategy to grow its footprint in prime Metro Manila locations. Arthaland says the purchase price was mutually agreed upon based on prevailing market values and will be funded internally. Some 1.2 million minimum wage earners in Metro Manila can expect higher pay starting July 18. The NCR Wage Board approved a 50 peso increase in the daily minimum salary The Labor Department says this will bring daily wages to up to 695 pesos for the non-agriculture sector and up to 658 pesos for the agriculture sector, service and retail establishments employing 15 or less workers, as well as manufacturing firms regularly employing less than 10 workers. The DOLE says this is the highest increase ever granted by the Wage Board in Metro Manila. Fuel prices are set to drop this week, though not enough to balance last week's two-step hike worth more than 5 pesos. Starting July 1st, gas prices will go down by 1 peso and 40 centavos. Diesel will be cheaper by 1 peso and 80 centavos, while kerosene prices will decline by 2 pesos and 20 centavos. The rollback follows easing Middle East tensions. The Basis Conversion and Development Authority remitted a record 5.17 billion pesos to the National Treasury, exceeding administration targets for government-owned and controlled corporations. The BCDA remittance is 80% of its 2024 earnings, above the 75% GOCC benchmark. 2.04 billion pesos came from dividends. 3.13 billion pesos came from land asset sales. Finance Chief Recto credits BCDA for turning idle land into jobs and revenue, citing the agency's projects like Newport City, Bonifacio Global City, and New Clark City.
But 5.17 billion pesos can build around 2,000 plus schools, or buy fertilizer for more than 500,000 hectares of rice land, or 250,000 hot meals for our children. If channeled to its mandated beneficiary, the AFP, it can boost the welfare and vocabulary of our fighting debt. For this is what Bagong Pilipinas demand of us. Not just good governance from above, but genuine transformation on the ground. A feat of which the BCDA is no stranger to, having been a forerunner in this field.
We're taking a short break. More business stories are up next. You're watching Business Brief. You're back on Business Brief. Despite rising tensions here and abroad, real estate leaders see a window of opportunity for the Philippines. Our reporter Sujin Kim is on the line for the details. Sujin.
Yes, Mai, Philippine property is gaining attention as a regional safe haven backed by interest rate cuts, foreign ownership reforms, and strong demand from expats, offshore investors, and multinational firms. The proposed 99-year lease law, energy-focused REITs, and a rebound in tourism are expected to bolster capital inflows in the second half of the year. In the residential segment, demand for high-end condominiums remains strong, particularly in Makati and BGC, driven by affluent young professionals, foreign families, and returnees. In the office sector, first quarter 2025 recorded a net absorption of 192,000 square meters, the highest since 2019. Taguig and Makati remained the most expensive districts, with rents above 1,200 pesos per square meter per month. While vacancy rates in non-CBD locations remain above 20%, demand is expected to shift towards no-frills, cost-efficient spaces in Ortigas, Quezon City, MOA area, and Alabang. Meanwhile, the REIT market is evolving beyond BPO office towers, now including energy infrastructure and retail assets, offering developers a tool to unlock capital for new projects. In the industrial segment, data center investments are accelerating. Over 900 megawatts of capacity are in the pipeline, led by players like PLDT Vitro, Digital Edge, and Singapore's STT. In the next 6 months, inflows to property funds, data infrastructure, and mixed-use developments are expected to rise, fueled by policy tailwinds, regional positioning, and investor appetite for long-term value and global uncertainty. And those are latest updates from Makati City. Back to you, Mai.
Thank you for that report, Sujin Kim. U.S. President Donald Trump says Washington is getting along well with Beijing. The two countries agreed to lower tit-for-tat tariffs on each other's products after their meeting in Geneva last May. Speaking to Fox News, Trump also says there's no need to resort to aggressive acts towards China. This despite Chinese intellectual property theft and the recent arrest of two Chinese nationals accused of smuggling a dangerous pathogen into the U.S. U.S. President Trump claims he's found a buyer for TikTok. Still, in a Fox News interview, Trump says a group of what he calls very wealthy people wants to buy the video sharing app, and he will make an announcement in 2 weeks.
No big deal. We have a buyer for TikTok, by the way. I think I'll need probably China approval, and I think President Xi will probably do it.
Who's buying?
I'll tell you in about 2 weeks.
A big technology company there.
Very, very wealthy people. It's a group of very wealthy people.
Trump also repeated his claim that Iran's nuclear program has been destroyed despite contradictory reports. Railway renaissance. That's how President Marcos described the government's rail projects in his State of the Nation address last year. But how are these projects doing now? Are they all systems go or stuck in delays? George Cahiles reports.
This is the MRT Line 7, a project passed on from the Arroyo, Aquino, and Duterte administrations and now inherited by President Bongbong Marcos. Construction began in 2016 and it's still not done. College student Trisha Galicia is already losing patience.
2 years po, mag-graduate na ako. Hindi ko po alam kung magagamit ko pa siya kasi feeling ko po ang tagal ng paggawa niya.
MRT Line 7 promises faster, more convenient travel for around 600,000 passengers from Quezon City to San Jose del Monte in Bulacan. Originally, train operations were supposed to begin this year, but the Transportation Department says commuters need to wait a bit longer as partial operations might begin in 2027. Another major project, the Metro Manila Subway, the country's first underground rail system. Started in 2019, the subway promises to cut travel time from Valenzuela to NAIA Terminal 3 to just 35 minutes. This nearly ₱500 billion project is funded by a loan from the Japan International Cooperation Agency or JICA. The Transportation Department says of the 17 planned stations, only 2 might be finished before President Marcos ends his term. The North-South Commuter Railway, which will connect Manila to Clark, Pampanga, and Calamba, Laguna, is also facing delays. The DOTR says the Manila-Malolo segment could be operational by 2027, but the full line may not be completed for another 4 years. As for the LRT Line 1 extension, it may take until 2030 before it reaches Bacoor, Cavite. Like other railway projects, it's also facing right-of-way issues. One proposed solution, amend the Right-of-Way Act to streamline land acquisition for major government infrastructure. The bill has already been passed by the 19th Congress and is now just awaiting the President's signature to become law.
The amendments are really going to be game changers in our work to get right-of-way as fast as we can.
The country's railway projects are moving, but at a pace that's far too slow for a nation in urgent need of progress. If this is truly the promised railway renaissance, then the government must act with greater urgency, transparency, and resolve. The public deserves a transport system that's not just modern, but reliable, efficient, and built without delay. George Cahiles, Bilyonaryo News Channel.
We're taking a short break. More business stories are up next. You're watching Business Brief. Breaking news in the U.S., a suspect in the fatal shooting of 2 firefighters in Idaho found dead on Canfield Mountain. Authorities believe the man started a brush fire and shot at responding firefighters. A third firefighter was also shot and was rushed to a hospital. The motive for the shooting is still unknown. The suspect has yet to be identified.
We had a cell phone activation that was in the same spot since about 3:16, and that it was in the same area, and we honed in on that cell phone, and we saw that there was a male, appeared to be deceased, with a weapon nearby. So we have currently one dead shooter. Based on the preliminary investigation that was being conducted, we do believe that the suspect started the fire, and we do believe that it was an ambush and it was intentional. And we do believe that he started it, and it was totally intentional what he did. We believe that there's a likelihood that when we are able to enter the scene again tomorrow without the threat of fire, that we'll find other weapons that were placed. So this was a total ambush. These firefighters did not have a chance. Okay, thank you.
Japan's so-called stigmatized homes are turning into a hot investment for realtors coping with surging property prices. Stigmatized homes, properties where deaths went undiscovered for days or even months, sell for up to 20% less than prevailing market value. With the average price for a second-hand 70 square meter Tokyo condominium at nearly $700,000 US, these discounted listings are becoming attractive. Investors renovate, then resell or rent, unmindful of the property's dark past. Philippine shares fall back into the 6,300 level as it closes the first trading day of the week in negative territory. The PSE index ended lower by 0.6% to close at 63.64, finishing the day as the second worst performer in Asia. Among the sectoral indices, only property ended in the green, with services falling the most at more than 2%. However, advancers outpaced decliners 108 to 82. Total value turnover reached 7.9 billion pesos. Majority of the day's most active stocks ended in the red, with DigiPlus falling the most at nearly 10%. Meanwhile, the foreign exchange market, the peso, currently trading at 56.42 against the greenback, appreciating from the previous close of 56.57. We have this just in. Ariel Nepomuceno has been sworn in as the new Commissioner of the Bureau of Customs. Nepomuceno replaces Bienvenido Rubio, who resigned from the position. President Bongbong Marcos led the swearing-in ceremony. Nepomuceno previously served as Executive Director of the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council and as Undersecretary of the Office of Civil Defense. And that's a wrap for today's Business Brief. I'm Mai Rodriguez. Join us again tomorrow as we bring you the stories that help you plan your next big, bold moves in business. Only here on the Bilyonaryo News Channel. See you then.